Hello, my name is Lizzie Karen, and welcome to my channel on Atlantis. In case you're new to my channel, I will just give you a quick overview of what it's all about. I dream about a past life that started about 36,000 years ago in a place called Tantal, which I think is Atlantis. The technology in my dreams was amazing, but it's quite different to what we have today. I've described much of this technology in earlier episodes. A lot of episodes are on stonework, and one in particular covering the polygonal stonework, using a form of geopolymer concrete, which required the use of a membrane or bag to enable a mixture to retain its shape while drying. And people have asked me how this membrane was made and how it worked. Not only can I describe how it was made, I can actually give you the location of one of the places where I think it probably was made, only because I recognize the carved stones used in the process that was used to make the membranes. So I'll be discussing how the ancients and later some of the early cultures around the world actually manufactured these membranes and what they look like. But before we start with that, let's just have a look at why I called it a membrane. According to Wikipedia, a membrane is a selective barrier. It allows some things to pass through, but stops others. And in my dream regressions, what I saw was a bag that allowed the water to come out of the mixture through the membrane, or at least it allowed most of the water to come out. Sometimes the mixture wasn't quite right and ended up being too much water inside. I understand that this process is called osmosis, which is diffusion through a semi-permeable membrane. So as I said, this membrane looked like a bag or a balloon, and so we'll come back to how it was made, but how it was used. Generally, it had a frame put inside at the top so that it could be filled with the various mix and components that made up the polymer. And once there was sufficient of the mix added to the membrane, it would have the water added, and then it would be ensured that the shape was just right for the actual location that it was supposed to be in place. Then, of course, it would dry out. If any problems occurred, i.e. there was an incorrect mix or whatever, sometimes the membrane had to be cut, and this often caused little nubs to appear. But if you want to know more about that, see the episode on the polygonal architecture and stonework. So now let me take you to what is currently referred to as a fertility temple. But it just reinforces the kind of minds that some archaeologists have when they see this kind of stonework. Maybe it is a fertility temple today, but it's a wonderful coincidence that it just happens to be a perfect replica of a membrane manufacturing plant in my dream regressions. So let me explain. The membranes were made from a gooey mixture that was kneaded and kneaded for ages. And then it was pulled into little round balls, which are then stuck onto the end of a giant straw, so probably something like a piece of bamboo, something along those lines. Then it would be heated over an open flame and rolled and blown, pretty much like glass is blown through the long tube. And it would be done very slowly so as to make a very even and thin membrane. Once the desired size of the bubble-like membrane was achieved, then it would be placed, taken off the rod, the end cut off, and placed like a bag to hang on one of the stone mushrooms. It would then be left to dry out, and the edges would dangle down, and it would be out in the sun, drying out. Once dry, it would be powdered and then removed off of the mushroom-like stones, turned inside out, powdered again, and then laid flat like a stack of pancakes and pressed. Then they could be just stored and kept ready for use. So these membranes were incredibly strong and were capable of considerable stretch. The biggest mushroom in the picture was the one with the slots through it, and that was where the blowing device was held. That was only for when there was a really big membrane required, because when it was really big, it needed a holder. Now we can return to our fertility temple and have a closer look at it. Well, what I would add first of all would be a nice big stone fire for the blowing of the membranes through the tube. And then, of course, the membranes, once they're being processed, would be all around on all the various mushroom stone carvings. Then I would add a big stone platform where the finished membranes would be placed, and they'd have probably a heavy rock put on them to keep them flat before they're put away to storage. And then they would have a nice large collection of various sized membranes ready for when they wanted to do their amazing polygonal stonework. So if you want to know more about the stonework and how they used the membranes in that process, then go back to the episodes on stonework. So that's the end of this episode, and I'll catch you all next time.